Hi guys, it's your girl Xee and Cyn, and today we're back with another video. And today we're learning about the hidden truth behind the end of slavery. And we got this from Thomas Sowell. The link will be in the description below for you to check out the original link.
Okay,
let's get into it.
All right.
Slavery was destroyed within the United States at staggering costs in blood and treasure. But the struggle was over within a few ghastly years of warfare. Nevertheless, the Civil War was the bloodiest war ever fought in the Western Hemisphere, and more Americans were killed in that war than in any other war in the country's history. But this was a highly atypical, indeed unique, way to end slavery. In most of the rest of the world, unremitting efforts to destroy the institution of slavery went on for more than a century, on 1,000 shifting fronts, and in the face of determined and ingenious efforts to continue the trade in human beings. Within the British Empire, the abolition of slavery was accompanied by the payment of compensation to slave owners for what was legally the confiscation of their property.
I was looking. Look at all the... Are you looking at it?
Yes.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Yes. And I have a question. Why is it called the, it says an empire... Sorry, like
on when the sun never sets.
How come is that? I'm curious. Comment below. Why is it that? Why is it said like that?
West Africa, NATO. You're blind.
Oh,
East Africa. Oh, because I'm like, what are these flags? So, Malta, Gibraltar, New Zealand, Australia, Canada. Oh, these are all the places that slaves were. It seems like
it. Seems like it.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, why all these flags? What's the purpose behind it? Because I'm like, these are different. That's why I'm like, do you see this? But if you notice, the Canadian flag wasn't like the flag that it is now. If you see the difference. Did it change over time?
Let me see the U.S. on here.
No.
I don't.
What is this, guys?
Yeah. We're trying to make sense of it in our own way, but if you can bring some insight, comment below, let us know. We're always willing to learn. Okay.
This cost the British government £20 million, a huge sum in the 19th century, about 5% of the nation's annual output. A similar plan to have the federal government of the United States buy up the slaves and then set them free was proposed in Congress, but was never implemented. The costs of emancipating the millions of slaves in the United States would have been more than half the annual national output, but still less than the economic costs of the Civil War.
So they could have paid for it. You see the difference?
That's crazy, and they chose not to.
They could have paid to free. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Way less than the war itself.
Yeah, way less. It's crazy to me.
But when you start to look how Britain, they're like, listen, yeah, we'll pay. You see the difference?
Yeah.
Don't want to get too deep into this, so let's continue.
Aside from the cost in blood and lives, and a legacy of lasting bitterness in the South, growing out of its defeat and the widespread destruction it suffered during that conflict. While the British could simply abolish slavery in their Western Hemisphere colonies, they faced a more daunting and longer-lasting task of patrolling the Atlantic off the coast of Africa in order to prevent slave ships of various nationalities from continuing to supply slaves illegally. Even during the Napoleonic Wars, Britain continued to keep some of its warships on patrol off West Africa. Moreover, such patrols likewise tried to interdict the shipments of slaves from East Africa through the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, and the Persian Gulf. Brazil capitulated to British demands that it end its slave trade after being publicly humiliated by British warships that seized and destroyed slave ships within Brazil's own waters. In 1873, 2 British cruisers appeared off the coast of Zanzibar and threatened to blockade the island unless the slave market there shut down. It was shut down. It would be hard to think of any other crusade pursued so relentlessly for so long by any nation at such mounting costs without any economic or other tangible benefit to itself. These costs included bribes paid to Spain and Portugal to get their cooperation with the effort to stop the international slave trade, and the costs of maintaining naval patrols and of resettling freed slaves, not to mention dangerous frictions with France and the United States, among other countries. Captains of British warships who detained vessels suspected of carrying slaves were legally liable if those vessels turned out to have no slaves on board. The human cost.
How crazy is that?
That is, wow.
Even though you're doing it for the good, you're going to foot that cost if you stop a ship that does not have any slave on it. How messed up is that?
Yeah. And remember, we watched a video about this because I did not learn of this in history class about, those, I don't want to call them pirates.
Barbary pirates.
Yeah, Barbary pirates. How they were just, selling slaves off to different, countries. And they're Africans, which is a shocker.
Selling their own.
Yeah, selling their own. And they were, and they didn't want the briberies. They did these treaties with other countries, but they were not upholding up to the treaty. They were still...
Like I said, how can you pay a thief to not thief?
Exactly.
It's that simple. There's no point in doing that. Because they're going to revert right to what they were doing. They cannot hold up their end of the bargain because for them to steal is more fruitful than what you are giving. It's like, in their eyes, they're losing business. So why make a deal? You can't make a deal with it. That to me didn't make any sense.
It didn't make sense.
Were also large. The heavy drain, physical and mental, and were all if those vessels turned out to have no slaves on board. The human costs were also large. The heavy drain, physical and mental, in keeping squadrons on the East African coast was reflected in the loss of 282 officers and men in the 10 years 1875 to 1885. And this did not include those invalidated home. Naval personnel, racked by fever, sunstroke, and dysentery, were forced to retire prematurely and live on a small pittance. The cost of upkeep of the squadron over the 20 years prior to 1890 was estimated at 4 million sterling, and this did not take into account the large amount of work imposed on consular and judicial staff at Zanzibar in trying cases and dealing with reports, etc.
The weather, that can definitely figure out. The African sun. Some people call it the pits of hell because how hot it is over there. 80, 90, and it's hot over there. So it made sense a lot of why some of them were dying when they're coming here to Africa. If you're not used to the heat, the environment, there's diseases, you will definitely die quicker because your immune system is not built for it. And that makes sense. Even that's why if you go over here in the cold, we're not used to the cold. A lot of it, it's just different. What are you going to say? You were about to say something.
No, I was just looking at the fact that so many soldiers, as they call them, squadron, died. With the fact that even though some of them had to retire prematurely,
yes,
but they got little to live off after that happened. You know what? And I'm like, but they're doing it for the greater good.
Yes.
It's like sometimes when you look at things when you're doing stuff for the greater good, it doesn't profit you, but you know in yourself it's worth it. You know what I mean?
You see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
People don't.
Yeah.
Even so, the results were slow in coming. More streamlined slave ships were designed in hopes of being able to outrun the ships of the Royal Navy in the Atlantic. Nevertheless, the dogged persistence of the British eventually reduced the shipment of slaves across the Atlantic and across the waters of the Islamic world. Although the French flag was for many years widely used as protection from the boarding of ships on the high seas by the British Navy, even by slave traders who were neither French nor authorized to fly the French flag. Eventually, France itself turned against slavery, outlawed the institution, and sent some of its own warships to patrol the Atlantic off the coast of Africa to intercept and deter the shipment of slaves to the Western Hemisphere.
But you see how long they took to join? It was just British ships
by themselves until I didn't know the France even joined. Was it? Yeah, I think we might learn that later on. Well, other countries also joined, or was it mainly British and France?
Listen, it's it's sad that it took so much and it took so long. I'm happy that it happened. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, geez, can you imagine just it took and the reason for that too is because they were designing better ships to do what they need to do in order to bring slave from one place to the next. You know,
The American flag was likewise so used, and the United States, like France, eventually turned against the slave trade and sent warships to join the Atlantic patrols to interdict slave shipments. Although by 1860, the Atlantic slave trade had been effectively stopped, the slave trade from East Africa across the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, and the Persian Gulf took longer to be reduced significantly. Off the east coast of Africa, smaller Arab vessels called dhows hugged the coastlines in waters too shallow for the British warships to enter. One British commodore estimated that he captured one dhow for every 8 that escaped. Nevertheless, during the period from 1866 to 1869, 129 slave vessels were captured and 3,380 slaves were freed.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is.
It may not sound like a lot to some people, but that's amazing. Because every life counts.
Every life. Yep. Wow.
So that's how they were getting away with it. They were hugging the shoreline. Because the bigger ship, like I was saying, they can't dock. There is not enough water to push them inshore in order for them to go back out. So it would have been harder for them to catch them. So can you imagine? They were thinking, you know?
Yeah. They had to figure that stuff out.
Jeez.
The threat of being boarded seemed imminent. The Arabs would throw slaves overboard to drown, rather than have them be found on board, which could lead to British seizure of the vessel and punishment of those who manned it. The worst that could befall the slaves was when the slaver was overhauled by a British cruiser, and they might then be flung overboard to dispose of all evidence. Devereux mentions a case where the Arabs, when pursued by an English cruiser, cut the throats of 24 slaves and threw them overboard. Colomb also states,
Wow. I can't speak on that. Like, sorry. I don't know what to say because, wow. That's disgusting. That's cold. That's, oh my goodness.
Heartless, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? So, putting myself in the position. Because you know, when you see a British flag, a French flag, an American flag, you have some sense of hope.
Yes.
It's like a little burst of relief.
Yes.
That I am going to be okay.
Yes.
But in that split second, because you decided, because remember, if you don't cut anyone on, you have to foot the cost.
Yes.
You rather, with how callous you are, slit my and throw me overboard to get rid of all evidence not to be caught. How heartless. Even if you, because he said not even that, he just throw them overboard. They're chained together.
Yes. That's messed up.
They can't even.
The Arabs would not hesitate to knock slaves on the head and throw them overboard to avoid capture. Because there were only a few naval ships available to cover a vast expanse of water in this region, British warships would often launch smaller boats to engage the Arab slave dhows. In these cases, as one study put it, the slave traffickers frequently did not hesitate to attack boat crews in defense of their profits. Battles between the Arabs' vessels and the smaller British craft were especially likely when the larger ships that launched them were too far away to reach the scene in time to join the battle. In other cases, the Arabs fled even from the smaller British vessels. An episode in 1866 was typical. On 26 April 1866, the Penguin set out after a dhow and fired several shots in an effort to make the crew come to. When the dhow failed to lower its sail, Gartorth felt certain that she was a slaver and ceased firing for the sake of the slaves on board. However, he managed to close with the dhow, which then made for the rocks through a heavy surf. By the time the ship's boats could be lowered to follow, the Arab crew had fled, but the pounding surf made any attempt by the slavers to salvage the human cargo too dangerous. To their horror, the boat crew found that they too could not reach the dhow, which was rapidly filling with water, drowning the slaves. The boat officer decided that he could not risk coming in close to the dhow, but several of the crewmen of the cutter recklessly dived in and swam through the surf to the dhow. In a remarkable display of courage, the sailors managed to bring 28 of the slaves back to the boat. But the dhow appeared to have had more than 200 slaves on board, and most died in the pounding waves.
Oh, wow.
In another episode.
Oh, wow. Yeah, wow. I was about to hear some eyes. Only, 28 got saved, and there was 200 of them? And look at these pictures. You got babies. That's so messed up. And the way to see how human life is just it's nothing. Human life is just nothing. They're not a person. It's an object. They're a currency. If they die, oh well, who cares? I need to make my money. That is crazy. Oh my goodness. Just the horror that they were going through. Just know that it's drowning. They can't be saved. No one cares about their lives. It's just, oh my goodness.
The Arabs' ruthlessness toward the slaves was further revealed. When the Daphne's cutter captured a dhow with 156 slaves on board, many were found to be in the final stages of starvation and dysentery. One woman was brought out of the dhow with a month-old infant in her arms. The baby's forehead was crushed, and when she was asked how the injury had happened, she explained to the ship's interpreter that as the boat came alongside, the baby began to cry. One of the dowmen, fearing that the sailors would hear the cries, picked up a stone and crushed the child's head. This was not a unique act. British missionary and explorer David Livingstone related a similar incident on land. One woman, who was unable to carry both her load and young child, had the child taken from her and saw its brains dashed out on a stone. Dr. Livingstone also reported having nightmares for weeks after encountering Arab slave traders and their victims. Not only was this Christian missionary shocked by the brutality of the Arab slave traders, so was Muhammad Ali, the ruler of Egypt, who was a battle-hardened military commander. None of this means that the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade should be ignored, downplayed, or excused, nor have they been. A vast literature has detailed the vile conditions under which slaves from Africa lived and died during their voyages to the Western Hemisphere. But the much less publicized slave trade to the Islamic countries had even higher mortality rates en route, as well as involving larger...
I don't. I can't. I can't wrap my head around it. It makes no sense.
It doesn't.
Can you imagine? That mom. Okay, you're taking me somewhere. See what I mean? Okay, I'm going to be a slave. A 1-month-old baby. 1 month. I have my baby. I go as far to have my baby. You're going to send me to go do whatever. At least that. Give me that. I know it's going to be hard for my child because I see the situation that I'm in. But give me that. But because, you robbed the life of an innocent child. For what? For what? I sit there. I'm hurt to the core. I have 5 kids and I can't even imagine. I don't know how man's heart can be so cruel. I cannot wrap my head around it. I can't.
No. No, they cannot.
And if somebody sit here and watch this and look at me and say, "What are you crying for? They don't have any freaking heart."
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter who it happened to, it just shouldn't have happened at all.
Exactly.
And to sit here and know that slavery still exists is mind-boggling. I don't get it, and I'll never get it.
Numbers of people over the centuries, even though the Atlantic slave trade had higher peaks while it lasted. By a variety of accounts, most of the slaves who were marched across the Sahara toward the Mediterranean died on the way. While these were mostly women and girls, the males faced a special danger: castration, to produce the eunuchs in demand as harem attendants in the Islamic world. Because castration was forbidden by Islamic law, the operation tended to be performed, usually crudely, in the hinterlands, before the slave caravans reached places within the effective control of the Ottoman Empire. The great majority of those operated on died as a result, but the price of eunuchs was so much higher than the price of other slaves that the practice was still profitable on net balance. The British Governor-General of the Sudan, C.G. Gordon, estimated that between 1875 and 1879, from 80,000 to 100,000 slaves were exported through his region.
4 years.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And can you imagine how many died?
Yes,
like he said, it was double more than what went in.
Yes,
because they're being castrated.
Castrated boys, women and children, girls were like on their journey, like they were dying because
they couldn't handle it.
That's a lot hard. It's no joke. It's no joke. And just the thought of being castrated, just the thought of it happening, like, ooh, that
raw,
yeah,
not antibiotic, nothing. And you expect to do that and for them to still carry on.
I'm sorry, they were not humans. They were objects, just toys that you can just play with that have no pain, no emotion, just nothing.
General Gordon imposed the death penalty on those convicted of castrating slave men to market them as eunuchs. His attempt to stamp out slave trading in the Sudan cost him his own life as an opposing army, raised and led by Muhammad Mahad, defeated his troops at Khartoum in 1885 and killed Gordon, after which the slave trade flourished again. British control in the region was firmly re-established in 1898 by the crushing victory of troops led by Lord Kitchener at Omdurman, and including a young officer named Winston Churchill. On the issue of slavery, it was essentially Western civilization against the world. At the time, Western civilization had the power to prevail against all other civilizations. That is how and why slavery was destroyed as an institution in almost the whole world. But it did not happen all at once or even within a few decades. When the British finally stamped out slavery in Tanganyika in 1922, it was more than half a century after the Emancipation Proclamation in the United States, and vestiges of slavery still survived in parts of Africa into the 21st century.
Part 1, that was heavy. Eye-opener. I learned a lot of new things. I did not know about the slave trade that's going on the eastern side of Africa. I know that there is east and didn't know too much about it compared to west, because I was originally born from west. But we hear more about west than east so much with the slave trade. But it sounds even that too, oh my goodness, crazy. Especially with the mothers and children, the girl, it's just how evil can you be? Like you said, how heartless can a person be?
And we're not saying that mothers and the kids' life were more valuable than the male. That's not what we're saying. It's just that
there's a rule sometime out there. You don't hurt children. You never hurt children.
A baby at that.
You don't hurt a baby. That's just a rule that it's universal. You never comfort babies. A child that's defenseless. They can't defend themselves. All they do is just cry, eat, and poop and sleep. That's all they do. A 1-month-old.
What can a 1-month-old do to you?
Exactly, because they're just screaming. They're probably hungry or just tired. Who knows?
But when you stop and you listen to this, and I don't get why this is not taught in school, so much details of this, the in-depth of it. I understand, yes, this happened in the 1800s. We get that. But history is important so it does not repeat itself.
And when you think about it, too, that's not too long ago, too.
No!
It's the late 1800s, close to the 1900s. That's close.
Exactly.
That ain't too far.
And then it's okay to me for you to know what your ancestors or know history.
Know your history. It's important.
Because if I wasn't doing these videos, I wouldn't have come across this. Because I wasn't going to just sit and go searching up. It's just the truth.
Yeah, it's the truth. Sorry.
And when I did this video, and it's my same reaction. I did it on Island Girl, and people were like, "Why are you crying? How did you not know this? Pick up a book and read. You're too old for this." And I'm like, "Are you serious? You think I'm gonna sit in a country and they're gonna talk about another country's history? No. They talk about their own. About their own ancestors or what happened within our time, within our little country, however long it started."
Yes.
You understand me? So I don't get it. How people can be so. What is the word I'm looking for? Not judgmental, but judgmental is a good word. But it's not popping in my head. The one that I'm looking for about when you decide to learn something or know something, or why are you so hung up on slavery? It's a part of our history. It's a part of who we are. And for me, it doesn't matter if it's because we just did the white slave trade. We didn't know nothing about that part. Because for us, it's always been about West Africa. You understand? It's not. I'm like, you were having white slave trade too?
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This hurt me to the core. I think I did this video a year ago on Island Girl, and I still feel the same way. It hurts. It hits. And if you don't hit, just sitting and listening to what somebody like you and I go through, and don't feel anything for them, even though it's in the past, something is literally wrong with you. Period. Point blank. Think about it. If you're a mother, if you're a father, if you're a sister, you're a brother, you're an aunt, your grandmother, whoever, think of the love you have for them and think of something like this happening to any one of them. And then you can come and talk to me and tell me about what am I crying for, or
we never able to see them again. Then a snapshot being dead.
That's
you don't know what happened to them. That's it. You'll never see them again. You will not see your nieces and nephews. Nothing. That's it.
You're out there living your life in your village, wherever you are.
Yeah,
and then you're
one day
you're sold for paper.
You're violated.
Yeah. You have no
working like a dog with no money. Nothing.
No say so.
Nothing.
You have no say so. Discarded like a piece of paper. You tell me.
And you have to get beaten too.
Can you imagine any pounds about it? No food. On the brink of starvation.
But you're working like a dog day and night. Like you're a machine. Like you're an object. We don't need to feed you. You're a machine.
Oh God.
But it's your girl Xee and Cyn. And we're
this was a heavy.
Oh yeah, it's always heavy. Always heavy. Now, even though it was a long time ago, like I would say, but still, it's always heavy. Because just the brutality of it, the history behind it, and you're a mom, and I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. Like it just it hits different. It hits different. Yeah,
we love you guys.
Yes.
Let us know what you'd like us to check out next. You can leave the link in the description below.
Yes.
Or you can type it in the comment section. Don't forget to give this one a big thumbs up and share so others can learn as well who doesn't even know history like we are being, taught in the process and learning in the process. Thomas Sowell, I like his content.
Mhm.
I do like his content.
And it's
where
my
it's coming.
brother.
Yeah. I like it where it's coming from.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it wasn't a brother or not.
Look,
I
it's
just
something
like
the white
his
man.
intellect. Yeah, I see where
Some
you're
people
coming
need
from.
a
Yeah,
brother.
yeah. For it to come
For
across.
some people,
Some
yes.
people are like that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh. We want the message, but we don't want the messenger. Or
Some
So
people,
I get where you're saying.
yeah.
That's what you're saying. I get it 100%. So that's why I'm like, it's not necessarily that, but I was like, yeah, I understand why you said that. But that's it from us.
Yes.
We love you guys to the max. Be good.
Yes.
Be kind. Love each other, please. If you can't be good and if you can't be kind, go sit your ass somewhere else, man.
Until you get
And
until
lock
you're
yourself
kind.
in a corner.
Yeah, don't spread that negative energy. Please don't.
Oh,
Please don't.
love you guys. Bye.